Good morning and welcome to the NTDA Tyre Industry Conference. To get today's programme underway, please welcome to the stage the NTDA Chief Executive, Stefan.
Sir Tom, ladies and gentlemen, industry colleagues, welcome to the NTDA Tyre Industry Conference 2017. Well, believe it or not, it's been another year since we last gathered, and, well, much has changed. But as the French would say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. And sorry, Quentin, for my terrible pronunciation of that. Because in reality, the shadow of Brexit continues to leave us with uncertainty. And the government is concentrating on carving out a deal and domesticating EU legislation. Well, a lot has happened, but very little has really changed. Certainly, industry concerns and the NTDA call for a ban on Part 1 tyres, EU tyre labelling, enforcement, and more support for apprenticeships haven't been addressed. But, come on, let's face it, we anticipated this would be the case. And over the last year, we have worked with ARIA PR to produce our own manifesto for change. And this is designed to raise standards and to improve tyre safety in the UK tyre industry. And here it is. And as I speak, Richard Paget, who led the project on behalf of ARIA PR, and my colleague Alison Keach are actually handing out the manifesto, so they should be coming to you from either side of the room. This manifesto now outlines our plans and priorities for the coming years to improve tyre safety for everyone. So, how do we go about producing this manifesto? Some of you will remember that we talked at the last conference about a project that we were starting to look into Part 1 tyres. Well, the project evolved because we realised that we couldn't just deal with the issue of Part 1 tyres as a single subject. The whole of our industry needs to be looked at in terms of the issues that we were dealing with. So, firstly, we decided to carry out a lot of research. And using one poll, first of all, we sent out a survey to all of our members within the association. This was to the full members, the tyre retailers, to get their opinion on key industry issues. We interviewed independently 1,000 motorists in terms of their understanding of tyres and their attitude to tyres and their attitude towards tyre retailers and their relationship with retailers. We held an industry roundtable with manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers and aftermarket suppliers. And we interviewed key people in other organisations, sister organisations, trade associations within the tyre industry, other interested parties that may be able to advise us in terms of their views, their opinions on some of the key topics affecting our trade. Now, you'll all recall that I stood up last year at the conference and started this whole thing with a call for a ban on the sale of defective, illegal Part 1 tyres in the UK. Unsurprisingly, when we surveyed our members, 90% of them said that they fully supported a total ban on Part 1 tyres in the UK. But what was very interesting is when we started to probe deeper into this, it was quite apparent that they didn't believe it was achievable. We've tried this before, it's a big fight, it's an uphill struggle, the government isn't actually in favour of banning Part 1 tyres, they see them as an important part of the economy, etc., etc. All the same arguments, but yeah, we have been here before, and it is a big ask. So we started talking to them about, is there something else that we can do? Now the government has pointed at us several times and said, well, you as an industry need to put your house in order. It's all very well coming to us and saying, ban this and ban that, but what are you doing to regulate your industry? So there was a lot of appetite for some form of independent assessment scheme with third-party certification to ensure that Part 1 tyres that are being sold are being done so legally, that they are being done so safely, and through organisations who actually know what they are doing. Moving away from the situation that we have at the moment, where dangerous tyres are being fitted by people who are unqualified to do so. There was great support both on the consumer survey with the motorists and on the industry survey with our members for some form of enhanced quality mark for part-worn tyres. There was also a lot of support for looking at the minimum tread depth on part-worn tyres and whether or not we could raise that. Because, of course, as you've heard Stuart Jackson say many times at the TyreSafe conference, 2 millimetre, 0.4 away from the legal limit of 1.6, it's hard, neither here nor there, is it? We also established that there was a growing trend within the membership for drilling the sidewalls of tyres that our members consider to be end-of-life tyres, in order to take them out of the marketplace completely. We also launched a public petition, and that was designed really to sort of gauge interest in terms of what the public thought about part-worn tyres. The qualitative feedback we've had on the petition is absolutely phenomenal, from people who know people who've had accidents as a result of buying part-worn tyres that have caused accidents, etc., all the way through to people who just see it as a logical move to eradicate dangerous tyres from the marketplace. And within the first 2 weeks, it attracted 2,500 signatures. But actually, in comparison to other statistics, 2,500 is nothing. Because if we look at the statistics that come out of the Tyre Industry Federation, we estimate, and it is a rough estimate, that there are 4.5 million part-worn tyres being sold in the UK annually. Now, we have absolutely no idea how many of those tyres are safe, legal, meet the regulations. But certainly, in the joint investigations and research that we've done in partnership with TyreSafe and Trading Standards, we know that 97% of the tyres that were inspected failed immediately because they weren't marked as part-worn. So those tyres are not being sold legally. But to put this into context, because we could go into hysteria over this, 97% illegal. They're illegal, but they're not necessarily unsafe. But the one thing that I would say is, if they haven't been marked as part-worn, then what we don't know is whether or not they've been tested and inspected to see whether they're safe. And that's the great unknown, and that is a concern. 34% of the tyres were actually dangerous. They did have life-threatening defects. And this is not some novice saying this. The people who looked at these tyres are people who are dyed-in-the-wool tyre experts, who are telling us that 34% of the tyres on sale during the investigations were so dangerous that lives were in danger. So then in our own research with motorists, we established that 15% had in fact bought part-worn tyres, and they'd done it online. 25% of them had bought part-worn tyres in general. But there is good news, very good news, because 80% of the motorists surveyed said that they would much rather buy tyres face-to-face. And we have lots of very, very good qualitative feedback which talks about the relationships that the motorists have with their tyre retailers and the value that they place on the advice and guidance given. So let's look at some of this other feedback that we got from the motorists in terms of their engagement with and their attitude to tyre safety. First of all, let's start with the gender variation. It should be an interesting one for you, Steph. 1 in 5 men have purchased part-worn tyres off the internet. 1 in 10 women have purchased part-worn tyres off the internet. Okay? Women are doing okay right now? 36% of men choose tyres based on tyre technician advice, but 45% of women choose their tyres on the tyre technician advice. But, whereas 54% of men regularly check their tyres, only 27% of female respondents check their tyres on a regular basis. Over 80% of both men and women would like to see that safety-approved mark on part-worn tyres that we spoke about. This is the enhanced mark. This is not just the old part-worn stamp that we talked about. This is where we can actually point and say, we know that that tyre has been inspected properly by an expert and it is safe to reuse. We also had some really interesting regional variations. So we've looked at the extremes first of all. Of the respondents in East Anglia, only 7% admitted to buying part-worn tyres, whereas in London it rose to 27%. By the time we got to Northern Ireland, 37% admitted to buying part-worn tyres. And of course we have all of the regions. The northwest didn't fare very well either, unfortunately. And then we started asking them other questions about tyres, not just part-worns. What is your understanding of EU tyre labelling? 1,000 motorists across the UK were interviewed. 4% said they understood it. If that's familiar, is it? 50% haven't even heard of it. 50% of the motorists haven't even heard of Tyre. And then we moved on and we started talking to our members about their attitudes to Part 1 tyres. They will do it because they are motivated by buying the cheapest product. 64% of respondents to the survey then said that the tyre market is growing for Part 1. Some say marginally, but 24% said that they thought there was a significant growth in the sale of Part 1 tyres. The Part 1 tyre industry is unsafe, said one of the members at the round table. The problem is we're telling them one thing, and the Part 1 dealers are telling them something completely different. There's no real guidance on this. Well, of course, there is real guidance on this. We've actually got regulations. But the regulations aren't being enforced. And the resources available to enforce the regulations just aren't there within trading standards. In the survey, 91% of our members said that they do believe that there should be some form of independent assessment, self-regulation for Part 1 dealers. And there's the exact stats. Dangerous tyres on a car can kill. Any improvement is better than nothing, but a ban is our aim, ultimately. 86% of the members surveyed supported the outright ban. 4% tentatively supported it, taking us up to that 90 figure that we had earlier on. But only 36% of the members who responded said that they think it's achievable. I don't know if it's apathy or if it's just exhaustion with the whole topic. And there's the exact stats. Our minimum tyre tread depth is below the winter tyres of European counterparts, and this allows an avenue. We should have a 3mm limit. That was repeated over and over again in the qualitative feedback. There was a real feeling within the membership that 3mm should be the legal limit for Part 1 tyres. And 78% agreed that this could make a difference. But actually, the apathy that we experienced in the survey with members when it comes to the motorists, well, 10% feel that motorists aren't really interested in their tyres. It's a grudge purchase. You know, they're not really interested in this whole topic. Then we had to move on and start thinking to ourselves, well, we don't want to be navel-gazing here. We're talking to motorists, we're talking to our members. It's a bit, insular. Let's talk to other people. So, included within the manifesto are the views of the British Tyre Manufacturers Association, representing, of course, the key tyre manufacturers. We also spoke to the Tyre Industry Federation to get an industry-wide view and perspective on this whole issue. And very importantly, we spoke to the Motor Vehicle Dismantlers Association, because of course they are generating a lot of these Part 1 tyres. And of course they are absolutely on the other end of the pole to us. They're saying, we will fight you on the beaches if you try and introduce a wholesale ban. Because it's worth a lot of money to them. But actually, it's a good argument. When you read the manifesto, you read the views of the NTDA, they're not being in any way confrontational. They're just being very factual in terms of how the whole process works for them. With tyre technicians, standards have improved, said our members. The problem is perception. Customers think we're giving them a hard sell. This was the other issue. Of course, you're fighting to get rid of Part 1 tyres, you want to sell new tyres. Your tyre technicians, they're all motivated by incentives and they're trying to sell things. And actually, they're very unskilled people trying to sell us things we don't want, said motorists. Not all of them, a lot of them have great relationships. But what was interesting is how keen our members were to improve standards within, I suppose, that perception of tyre technicians, to have greater qualifications, some form of licensing, so that they're recognised as essential people in the automotive aftercare market. 96% said that they would back some form of qualification and professional licensing. And of course, we're going to be talking about this later on in Prashant, our chairman, will talk about this in his speech, in terms of the new licensing scheme we've actually introduced, which has already taken off. 60% of members say customers do not appreciate the skills of the tyre technician. I think the motorists probably are far more positive than you think. And of course, the other thing we started to look at was the changing marketplace. What is a tyre technician these days? How many tyre retailers actually just sell and fit tyres? If you look at our members' business models, they are servicing, they're involved with MOT, they're involved with repair, they're involved with diagnostics. The mechanical side of what our members' technicians do is waning, whereas the technological advancements that we're now facing, we're talking about diagnostic technicians a lot of the time. And tyres, of course, are included in that in terms of TPMS, wheel alignment, and everything else that we're dealing with. So we talked about Brexit and the uncertainty that that brings to us. Well, we're not going to have much impact as the tyre industry in this whole debate, are we? So we have to crack on and make sure that we are educated, that we are aware, that we know where technology is heading, we know where the marketplace is heading, that we have professional people with the skills to deal with technological advancement in tyres, such as the TPMS that I mentioned, and of course, some of the topics we're going to be discussing today, advanced driver assistance systems, autonomous vehicles, and the latest technology. So, that brings me to our actual manifesto for change, which obviously is also within this document. The things that we're going to be looking to do as a trade association and support over the next 3, 5, 10 years, we're looking at a pragmatic plan to eradicate illegal hard-won tyres, because they're dangerous. This is a safety issue. This is not about sales. This is a safety issue. If we can't achieve the ban, then we will look at self-regulation. We've already started talking to our sister organisation, the Tyre, and Peter Taylor will be speaking to you later on today, to look at some form of protocol where we can introduce something where we know that companies are legitimately selling hard-won tyres that are safe for consumers. We're going to promote and increase tyre technician skills and improve qualifications. Obviously, a lot of work is done by the IMI and City and Guilds, and we have training providers, several in this room today, who are involved with those organisations. But on the back of the REACT scheme, which was to train tyre technicians working on the roadside to work safely, we've now launched the Professional Tyre Technician Development Scheme. And there was a leaflet in your folder. The staff will talk to you about it today. But basically, REACT has gone from nothing to close to 4,500 licensed commercial tyre technicians on the roadside. And thank goodness, knock on wood, we're not seeing anywhere near the issues with our tyre technicians at the roadside that we used to. We're not seeing the deaths that we used to see. So it's been a phenomenal success. Obviously, the REACT committee is led by Phil Thirst from Bridgestone, and we have a very dynamic team. Most of the people are here today. We've got Stuart here from Roadside Safety, Stuart Powell, we've got Alison Higginson here from Trading. Great team of people, dedicated industry professionals who have really made a difference. And it was on their recommendation that we took forward the licensing scheme, and I'm delighted to say that we're already training the first people on that. Of course, we will support the Trailblazer Group and the new apprenticeships in our tyre sector. I'm glad to say that a real professional is coming to the stage after me to talk to you about what's happening with the apprenticeships, all things. We want to work to make sure that the tyre industry is more attractive to new talent, and we're talking to our colleagues within the Tyre Industry Federation to see how we can attract youngsters into our industry, explain to them the way that technology is heading, that it's not just about the tyres anymore, that it's actually a very attractive industry where their understanding of and passion for technology could be a real asset to our industry. Of course, we will continue to educate motorists about tyre safety via the NTDA membership network and in partnership with our colleagues at TyreSafe. And overall, work to raise confidence levels in the industry. The work that we're now doing, the work of the manifesto, the research results, is all being published into the press, and I'm delighted to say the first press releases that we put out about some of the stats that we established in the motorist research. We've got fantastic coverage, both in national Tier 1 press, local press with the regional variations that we spoke about earlier, and of course, professional tyre press. And I know a lot of you are here from the automotive and tyre press today. Thank you all very much for your support. It's been really terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me done. I'm going to hand over now to our next speaker. Thank you very much. Will you please welcome to the stage Mr. Paul Binks.